Good morning, Houston, and welcome to Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge here on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever. Are you fearful that better health seems out of your reach, regardless of how hard you try or whatever you do? Are you afraid of suffering with heart disease or diabetes, or lingering with stroke or cancer? Or do you avoid thinking about these things because you'll just try to make the best of it, whatever happens? Are you limited by joint pains or finding that you can't run from your headaches? Maybe you're hesitant to try something new because you're afraid of what you will do maybe not being the right thing, maybe wrong, or maybe because you'd be better be right or nothing will ever help. Regardless of what might be happening with your health problems, these next few minutes could be the answer to your prayers. Unless, of course, you're convinced that your doctors have done everything possible. Or if you've already decided to have surgery, but you're just waiting until you worsen further. But if you hold out any hope at all, then you should know that we see desperate people every day. People skeptical about whether anything we do can make a difference in their lives. And sure enough, many of them are pleasantly surprised. Maybe you could be one of them. After all, the only thing you have to lose is your discomfort, your fear, your worry, maybe even your anger that no one has really listened to you or that no one has been able to help you. We'll be talking about what you can do to get out of your pain and get on with your life. I practiced for 25 years, never believing that you're suffering from a deficiency of one or more drugs or that an operation is probably the best answer. Whatever ails you, God built your system to repair itself and to restore more normal function. And that, in a nutshell, is the whole buzz on the topic of alternative or holistic medicine that you've been hearing about these past few years. Now, drugs and surgery can be helpful, but true natural healing depends on three factors. First, find what's blocking you from feeling better and remove it. Second, find what trace factors you might be missing but you need for repair and provide them. And third, find what switches need to be turned on and turn them on. We'll share practical pointers to help you improve with the most common problems seen in doctors' offices, practical preventive medicine updates to help reduce your risk factors for the most serious diseases that claim our comfort and then our lives, and practical ways to reduce your risks and improve your results with drugs and surgery that you might need. As I've said for years, when life is your choice, failure is not an option. So learn more today on how you can succeed, and if what we offer doesn't apply to you right now, then please share this life-saving information with family or friends who do need to know. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us in chapter 1, verse 9, that there is no new thing under the sun. So let's see what we might learn from those who've walked the path ahead of us. Maya Angelou, American poet, writer, and actress, says, "There's a world of difference between truth and facts. Facts can obscure truth." And how true that is in so many of the things that we do in helping people to get better, that facts can obscure the truth. And of course, the truth is results for you with natural healing. Jane from Houston emailed saying whether anything could be done to help her get some sleep because her husband snores. So we're going to turn our attention today to a common problem we'll call sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea is a common yet rarely diagnosed problem. It's turning out to play a major insidious role in heart disease, including congestive heart failure, high blood pressure, and chest pain. Yet many cardiologists and heart disease patients are not aware of the problem, and researchers into apnea have found that this not awareness is just more widespread than ever. A handful of small but convincing studies, all have been reported in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Actually, some of them even earlier than that, but they point to a strong link between heart disease and sleep apnea. And that's from Dr. James Kiley, director of the National Center of Sleep Disorders Research at the National Institutes of Health in Maryland. And, it's important because apnea comes from the Greek word meaning want of breath, and it first came to medical attention in 1965. That's not long ago, 1965, when researchers began putting people into sleep laboratories and measuring their respiration and brain activity throughout the night. And apnea results in brief interruptions of breathing during sleep, which can put a strain on the heart. And this strain has important implications for about 2.5 million Americans with congestive heart failure, said Dr. Douglas Bradley, director of the Research Sleep Laboratory at the University of Toronto. Most of these patients take a large assortment of drugs, yet their condition continues to deteriorate, as he said. Many are severely short of breath and cannot walk from the couch to the kitchen without feeling exhausted. Now, some studies have shown that a non-drug therapy, using a machine that delivers oxygen to the lungs during the night, can work miracles in some of these patients. That's Bradley's observation, and I have to tell you, our research on sleep and oxygen problems over the last 11 years has been absolutely spectacular with these results. Blood pressure falls, their fatigue goes away, and they can cut back on medication, says Bradley. Dr. John Remmers, professor of medicine at the University of Calgary, notes that most who have sleep apnea do not realize it. The onset is slow, people do not find themselves in pain, and doctors may not connect sleep apnea with the kinds of symptoms seen in their patients, including fatigue, high blood pressure, depression, even impotence. And estimates are that at least 10% of American men and perhaps 5% of American women suffer with this. Now, sleep disorders, which are typified by loud and labored snoring, may be a cause of high blood pressure, researchers have reported. And snoring is often accompanied by periods when breathing ceases, episodes that the doctors, as I say, call sleep apnea. A team of scientists have found that snorers stop breathing several times at night, sometimes dozens of times, but that during such episodes, people are deprived of oxygen. And that's a near-deadly scenario that leads to high blood pressure, and that's a major risk factor for heart attacks, strokes, and kidney failures. In quote, snoring is a symptom of sleep apnea, and snoring occurs when your airway is partially obstructed, said Dr. Javier Nieto, a medical epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health in Baltimore. And he says you stop breathing for a few seconds, and those seconds are important. He says the starting and stopping of the respiratory process interrupts the sympathetic nervous system, that's one of your automatic systems, which controls breathing and the beating of the heart. And when breathing stops even for a few seconds, blood oxygen levels drop and blood pressure rises substantially. Those are dangerous findings. Now, the symptoms of sleep apnea syndrome, also called nocturnal hypoxemia, fancy names for just meaning too little oxygen in your blood, are subtle and they mimic other conditions. And therefore, the condition is usually not diagnosed, even though it is thought to occur in one form or another in perhaps as many as 1 in 4 individuals. That'd be like 25% of the population. Patients can suffer from excessive daytime sleepiness and loss of concentration, impotence, changes in personality, even occupational disability, often as consequences of disturbed sleep. And those diagnosed with sleep apnea syndrome have been shown to have significantly more automobile accidents than those without the syndrome, and the number of accidents has been shown to increase with advancing severity of the disorder. Now, worrisomely, we talk about Americans getting more and more overweight. Obesity tends to increase the severity of symptoms and potential dangers. Now, if sleep apnea is common, what kinds of problems do you see with it, particularly in men over 40, and especially if they're overweight or have a thick neck or recessive chin? But it can strike anybody, and when we talk about striking, we're talking about loud or excessive snoring, feeling tired even after a full night's sleep, waking with headaches or with a dry mouth, excessive sweating during sleep, restless sleep with lots of tossing and turning, sleepiness during the day, memory loss, weight gain, loss of sex drive, waking with a feeling of choking, perhaps long pauses between breaths during sleep, followed by a gasping when a breath finally is taken. And if not treated, this kind of sleep apnea pattern can cause or worsen high blood pressure, loss of memory, migraine headaches, impotence, and even the risk of heart attack or stroke, and right-sided, a special kind of heart failure, and of course, sleep deprivation. The time is about 9 past the hour, and you're listening to Feeling Better, Naturally, with Dr. John Trowbridge, on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. Your extended health forecast is brought to you now by Life Celebrating Health in Humble, near Bush Intercontinental Airport. Our crystal ball shows clear to partly cloudy, with the winds of change blowing. Are you acting more like an ostrich, burying your head in the sand because you don't feel able to deal with your health problems? Then your tail feathers will be getting wet when partly cloudy skies change to rain. Perhaps you're clucking around, kind of happy that a new medication has you feeling better, but not realizing that those fancy patches and Band-Aids might not be the best for you. If you're not changing anything and simply hoping for the best because you've been feeling pretty good, or maybe you're afraid or unsure, then cloudy to very stormy skies are on your horizon. Or just maybe you're ready to make changes to regain and maintain better health, then sunny skies are coming your way. At Life Celebrating Health, you can depend on us as partners in your healthcare, and we'll design personalized programs to help keep your days sunny. And we'll show you how to spend less and get more. Call for your free telephone consultation with one of our treatment assistants. No fee, no obligation. Just dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. That's 1-800-FIX-PAIN. 1-800-FIX-PAIN. As to receive our free e-newsletter, just share with us your email address or send your questions to us through our internet website, www.healthchoicesnow.com, because if you don't know you have choices now, then you don't have any. And unlike the weather, you do have choices for better health. And we want you to know all about those with sleep apnea and the serious problems that it can cause. And my first guest this morning is another one of my favorite people. That's my dad, Jack Trowbridge. And I have a personal story to share with you about his well-being and health. He had come out for a family reunion in 1996. And at the time, I had gotten enough experience doing research on oxygen and how that dealt with people's health, and especially with heart problems. And I was starting to branch out and really look at other issues of degenerative disease and aging. So we did this overnight sleep study with my dad. Now, that's not this fancy one in the hospital where they charge you $4,000 and such. It's done with a little fancy thing at home that's a special device that measures your oxygen levels and your pulse so that through the night we can create a record which we then look at from our computer when you bring the instrument back to us. And my dad had dropped significantly low. Now, the oxygen levels we're looking for are 99 and 100, perhaps 98. When you start getting 97 and lower, that really is too low. My dad went down into the mid-80s. And when you hit 88, that qualifies for Medicare oxygen for life. That's the standard of when you're starting to get sick. So my dad had qualified, and we sent him back home, but then again, he was joining us in a couple of weeks on a family vacation in Florida, and the equipment that I had ordered for him had not yet arrived in California. So he goes on this trip, and he precedes our trip to Florida with a little cruise and joins us at Disney World. Do you remember joining us that day?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and I don't know how come, because you were really bushed.
I was sick. I had pneumonia.
Yeah, but you didn't know that.
Not at the time.
No, we walked around Disney World, and you were bushed, and I decided I wasn't going to tolerate this. So I called the folks in Florida and said, I need to get some oxygen for my dad for the hotel room. And that was a story in itself we can talk about later. But I basically got the oxygen up, and you were just basically too sick to figure out how to use their machine. And you came to the hotel the next day, and you were absolutely flat out sick. 103-degree fever. The hotel was kind enough to let you into my room, where I found you on the bed, breathing heavily and not looking good at all. That's when we found out you had pneumonia. Took 8 hours to get you checked into the hospital. But I have a bad story about the hospital.
Oh?
I begged with the doctor. I said, this is really unusual. You're not going to believe this. I want you to put my dad on 4 liters of oxygen, 3 at the very least, because, and I told him about the study, and here's what we needed to put you on at home, but you hadn't gotten the machine yet. So we did. And you brightened up beautifully the next day. And then the day after, you were doing better, and they took your oxygen away. They took away exactly what you needed to get better. And that slowed your recovery. But you went home and you started the oxygen treatments at home. And that's simply using oxygen at night, breathing through a little tiny tube that feeds oxygen into your nose or your mouth.
Oh, just while I sleep, or sometimes I use it during the day.
When you're sitting, reading, doing paperwork, whatever.
If I don't feel too good, take a little oxygen.
And
feel better.
Feel better, don't you? Well, you know, all of our cells use oxygen to power up everything that they do. I mean, that's the whole purpose of supplying blood flow throughout the entire body, is to deliver oxygen to all of those areas, including your brain. Well, maybe we should work better on that. What do you think, Dad?
That's why they test those car toys to see what's going on. Getting to the brain.
That's right. The carotid arteries are the blood flow that goes through the front of the neck to get to the brain. And that's one of the easy things we can look at. We can also look at blood flow down through the lower extremities. But the neat thing about oxygen is once you put the oxygen in higher levels than people get just by breathing room air. Room air now isn't what room air used to be. Room air, before we had all the pollution, all the toxic chemicals and metals in our air and our water and our food, we worked much better because we had a clean environment. And in the smog and pollution and the indoor pollution from smoking and all this other stuff that we do, getting exposed to fumes in driving and so on, room air is now worse than it ever was, and especially in bigger cities like Houston and other major metro areas. So, people are fearful about putting oxygen on. They say, wait a minute, actually, I don't want to test for that because I don't have any problem breathing. And we tell them, don't worry, because, see, it's a requirement. You have to be breathing or we won't do the test. And for those people who don't really understand oxygen is critical, we say, take a deep breath, hold it. Just keep holding it. And pretty soon you find out everybody wants another deep breath, because it's essential. So when we talk about testing people, we're not talking about tying you to an oxygen machine and hauling a tank around. We're just talking about sleeping, like you're discussing.
Basically, yes.
And when you wake up in the morning?
I feel good. Sometimes much better than others, but I enjoy my oxygen, and I think I need it for my health.
And you've been on it for almost 8 years now. And you're 86 years old, and people worry about they slap oxygen onto you in the ambulance, or they put it on in the intensive care unit. It's the first thing that the hospitals do. It must mean you're ominously sick. But
the oxygen is essential. That's why they put it on.
That's what keeps you from getting sick, because your levels are going down slowly over time as your body is wearing out the systems on the inside the cells, the metabolism. And so would you say that you'd want to give up your oxygen?
No. But they should can some of this air from Alaska and send it down here.
Oh, gosh, yes. We took a wonderful trip there, and it was definitely different, wasn't it?
Oh, it was marvelous.
No question about it. And when people go to, resort areas, often apart from cities and often at altitude or way out and away from civilization, they come back talking about the refreshing air and how wonderful it was to breathe like that. So when you talk about using oxygen to your friends, and your cohort home in California, what do they say?
I guess they think it does not apply to them.
Yeah, isn't that the general attitude? Younger people.
They're not sick.
Right. Younger people, older people. I love the way they say they're not sick, because in actual fact, they're getting sick over time because they're not doing something about it. They just don't realize it yet. The disease hasn't shown up with symptoms yet. And that's the nice thing about oxygen. We can take people out of congestive heart failure very quickly, help them recover from heart attacks and strokes and gangrene and other things. This is not hyperbaric oxygen, that you've heard about from people using these tanks or tubes where they put you in. And those are called dives, where they increase the pressure like a deep-sea diver. And they're putting in intense oxygen concentrations. And it definitely helps with wound healing, with stroke recovery, with other tissues that are in trouble. There's no question that it helps. But hyperbaric is, number one, impractical. Number two, very expensive. Number three, has certain risks. And the oxygen concentrator that we can get for you to use at home, if you qualify. That's another important thing. You got to qualify.
But that is so easy to use. You just wear this little cannula.
Yes.
And set your level, and you're off. It's wonderful.
Kind of like off and running while you're sleeping.
Oh, yes, of course it does. But when you wear it while you're sleeping, you never notice it at all. Right. It doesn't bother you.
Get used to it and get to feeling better. Well, I just wanted to have you join us on the program this morning in order to share with us your experience, because you were one of the first patients I put on for the oxygen for restoring better health as people got older. And thanks so much, Dad. You've been wonderful. It's 20 past the hour here on Star 790 KBME with the best medical updates ever. Let's pause briefly for this important message for one of our sponsors. Would you like to sleep soundly and feel better? Have extra energy? If so, you need the Magnetico Sleep Pad. Blind studies have found that the Magnetico Sleep Pad helps people who suffer from pain, fibromyalgia, angina, fatigue, and pain from diabetic neuropathy. Sleep Pad owners report relief from arthritis pain, back problems, migraines, high blood pressure, and other disorders. And here's the good news. Magnetico offers you a 6-month satisfaction guarantee. So start feeling good again. Call this toll-free number now, 1-866-465-8892. That's 1-866-465-8892. You know, daylight savings time starts tomorrow, the 4th. That's early morning. So remember to move your clock forward, spring forward 1 hour. And since spring has sprung, ready or not, get outside, Houston, and enjoy all the reasons why you live in the Sun Belt. Let's do a blast from the past. Remember the Burma Shave roadside signs on the fence posts, those little red signs back in our old traveling days. Here's one. The answer to a maiden's prayer is a man most anywhere using Burma Shave. That smooth skin gets them every time. Well, today our second guest this morning is Linda Black of Bel Air, Texas, who has kind of a fun story. She came in with no real serious problems, but certainly wanting to feel better in her life. Linda, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, you want to tell us a little bit about how you ended up getting onto oxygen?
Well, I had suffered with asthma, not a horrible case, but mild asthma.
Mild asthma. That's like being a little bit pregnant, you
yeah,
know?
It was, it was that I wasn't, like being rushed to the hospital or anything, but I did have some breathing problems, enough that I was on steroid inhalers, and I occasionally had to use rescue inhalers, which I disliked intensely.
A lot of side effects to those things.
Yes, not the least of which is an immediate thing for me where I start shaking.
Oh, yeah. The shaky, racy stuff.
And I just didn't feel like that was the best thing. And my husband was a patient of yours, and he said, well, why don't you talk to him about this? And I did. And you suggested oxygen. And so I went through a 24-hour sleep test and found that in my sleep, one reason I probably was not getting very good sleep was that my oxygen levels were very low. So,
and of course, you didn't expect that, right? I mean, you knew.
No, I really didn't expect it to be that low.
Yeah, you knew you had a breathing problem with the asthma type, or what we call reactive airway disease, off and on.
Yeah.
But not a nighttime problem, right?
Well, I just didn't realize that I had a nighttime problem.
Don't worry, nobody does.
Because I stayed asleep. I didn't know I was having that kind of problem.
Right.
But I didn't. I woke up feeling exhausted every day. And I just felt like there had to be something better. So we got an oxygen concentrator.
Right.
And it's been very, very helpful.
You know, I sleep with an oxygen concentrator, too. And I've done so for years and years, almost 10 years now. And people have these fearful ideas about, it's this big oxygen tank and stuff. It's just a little suitcase-sized thing.
Right.
That just sits off elsewhere so you don't hear the noise, but it pulls oxygen out of the air and puts it through the tube to you.
And my thought was that if I could get 8 hours at night of oxygen, then that would put me ahead of the day's worth of air that has everything in the world spewed into it.
How true that is around here.
And so I thought that would really, really help. And occasionally during the day, I'll use it if the air quality is really bad and I'm just feeling a little exhausted from all of it. I will use that. And I can also use it when I'm on my treadmill doing some exercise.
And we like that because that increases what's called your exercise reserve or your oxygen reserve. You inside your cells, the little parts that make up all the organs of your body, actually become even more efficient at extracting energy and dealing with oxygen. So it has benefits all through your day.
Right. And I also think that one of the nice things about it, when I wake up in the morning, I've never been a person that just bounds out of bed. And so I do this little thing in the morning. I just lay there when I first wake up, and I start really deep breathing the oxygen.
Uh-huh.
And if I do that for a few minutes, my brain seems to clear a lot quicker than it does if if I don't have the oxygen, like if I'm on a trip or something.
Sure.
And I can tell the difference, and it just feels good to get all that oxygen. It feels like I'm expanding my lungs and everything, because I try to do it for 3 or 4 minutes. I try to just really pull in all of that oxygen that I can.
It's a little bit of a boost.
It is.
That's like they do at oxygen bars. Do you know about those?
I've heard of them. I've never been to one. I heard that someone was attempting to open one here in Houston, but I have my own private in-house bar. So.
Well, they're very common over in Japan, where there's a lot of air pollution. And in some of the bigger cities, people go in to get their hit. Their, 10 minutes of oxygen for, $10 or whatever. But like you talk about, it really does make a difference.
It does. It's a very cleansing feeling. It's
Uh-huh.
like you cleanse the inside, and then you hop into the shower and cleanse the outside, and you've got a complete package.
What a way to go.
It really does help. And the thing, this season of the year, my allergies always kicked in, and usually at this time with all of the dripping pollen from the beautiful oak trees.
Right.
But I could not talk to you at this point. I would be sneezing. I would be choking with all of the mucus, and I would be so stopped up that I would sound terrible. And since I have been using the oxygen the last 2 or 3 years through this season, I am actually able to function.
That's just awesome.
And I just put it down to that, because from the time I was 20 years old and moved here, it would just be, the spring was miserable.
Spring had sprung.
It just was not my fun time of year. I'd become very fond of winter when everything was dead.
It was quiet down.
And
now, do you still use your cortisone inhalers?
No, I don't. I do not use last year, I think I mentioned when I was in the office one time that last year I have still got a rescue inhaler.
Uh-huh.
And I used it once last year when I thought, I'm really having some problems. And then that night on the news, I found out that we were on red alert and I had been working outside without a mask or
in the beautiful sunshine, not realizing that the air was getting you.
And not realizing that just my breathing in and breathing out was not doing me a favor. So I used it that one time, and then I thought, I guess maybe I should check and see what the air quality is before I'm outside. But of course, I also try to use a mask now if I'm out working in my flowers or something. I try to remember and not just be tempted by the nice, beautiful sunshine like we had today.
Well, when you look out and you say, "Gosh, this is why I live here in the Sun Belt." It started out as a gorgeous day, and I want to get out in this. It's like a cruel trick of fate that for you to get out there, you're going to suffer later.
Right.
It's not fair.
It isn't, and that's why I think that having the 8 hours that approximately, if I get to bed on time, the 8
right.
hours of oxygen that I have at night, I start the day in an advantaged position because I've got my body can fight off, since it's gotten some good oxygen hours in there. I think my body has more capability for fighting with the elements outside when I'm freshly oxygenated.
You know, Linda, you actually do have more fighting potential because that's what your body uses in its defense system. You actually make what's called an oxygen burst in order to kill viruses and bacteria and parasites and so on. We're going to come back for more information from you. It's now about 30 minutes past the hour here on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. Sometimes, especially when our attention is focused on health problems, we forget that laughter is the best medicine. So how about this for today? A veterinarian was feeling ill and went to see her doctor. The doctor asked her all the usual questions about symptoms, about how long they'd been occurring, and so on, when she interrupted him. Hey, look, I'm a vet. I don't need to ask my patients these kinds of questions. I can tell what's wrong just by looking. Why can't you? The doctor nodded, looked her up and down, wrote out a prescription, and handed it to her and said, there you are. Of course, if that doesn't work, then we'll have to put you down. Okay, this is Find a Rainbow Day, so do so. Get out and find one. Palm Sunday is tomorrow, the beginning of a great celebration week because Easter's coming next week, the 11th. April's birthstone is the diamond, the flowers are the sweet pea and the daisy. And this is the season of Aries, the ram, March 21st through April 19th. And April is Alcohol Awareness Month. You already know how we feel about that. So remember to pay attention, and remember, friends, don't let friends drive drunk. Let's get straight to the question. What are you waiting for? Sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Angry at not feeling better? Threatened with pain or limitations? Or fearful about the future? Can you trust that you'll find the answers, the ones you need right now? You'd better take this responsibility seriously. You've got to find the answer somehow, and you'd better be right, because your survival might be in the balance. So listen to what I have to offer. Over the past 24 years, I've developed and improved integrative treatment programs to help many people suffering with a great variety of frustrating illnesses. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, heart disease, even after surgery, and especially congestive heart failure, shortness of breath, restless sleep or insomnia, like we're talking about this morning, poor circulation and leg pains, hypoglycemia and diabetes, poor memory, even Alzheimer's and other dementias, migraines and other headaches, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, ulcerative colitis and other gut problems, frustrating skin conditions and disabling neck and back pains, sports injuries and arthritis, prostatitis, chronic urinary infections, chronic sinus and lung infections, PMS, menopause, even manopause. And the list goes on and on because health deals with basic body processes, not just squashing particular symptoms. You could feel better than you ever expected. Now, I've lectured on these topics for over 20 years. I've written books and medical papers to share how to make healing happen. The leading authors and newsletter editors in preventive medicine have been personal friends of mine for years. In my 25 years of practice, I found that very few people know that simple, effective, and cost-conscious solutions are available to help with their problems, starting now. And few people realize that several of the problems for which they are seeing different specialists are often related to the same basic cause. So correcting what is causing one problem might improve several other problems that frustrate, worry, or anger you, just like we're talking with sleep apnea and oxygen. So make your healthcare investment pay even bigger dividends in your future. Get details on our exclusive and unique cashable voucher program that can return to you cash dollars for your future expenses. We're here to save your health and save your wallet as well. And that's what this show is all about. And that's what we're all about at Life Celebrating Health in Humble. Call for a free consultation with one of our treatment assistants. No fee, no obligation. Just dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. That's 1-800-FIX-PAIN. You're listening to Feeling Better, Naturally, with Dr. John Trowbridge. Invite your family and friends to tune in and join us here on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever, Saturday mornings from 6 to 7. Now, Linda, you were talking about getting a leg up, stacking the deck for the day. And feeling better. As we grow older, remember when we were kids, we just thought life just went on, it was great. But as we get older, we realize that there's limitations. And anything we can do to stack the deck matters.
That's true. One of the things after my husband saw how much I was improving and enjoying having my allergy-free breathing and this sort of thing, he decided to try the oxygen and did the 24-hour test, and it has really helped him a great deal also. But in so doing, it has helped me because he snored till I could not sleep.
He ran that freight train, huh?
And now I can tell if for some reason in the night he gets up or something and forgets to put his oxygen back on, then he'll start to snore.
Oh, the snore monitor here.
And it's I don't know why. You probably do. I cannot figure out why. It is such a help for him because if he has the oxygen, he doesn't snore.
He just feels better.
It probably is true, but I found that that was a side effect benefit for me.
To have a copycat husband who wanted to do it too.
He wanted to do this because he saw that it really helped me, and he thought, well, why should you have all the advantages here?
Exactly. And that does lower his risk for heart attacks and strokes and even cancer, arthritis, all these things that oxygen has been found to really help relieve a lot of the risk factors as well as the ultimate symptoms.
Well, I have great hope that it also is helping me to just have the advantage of not getting my body to the point that these things can happen.
Right.
Because I feel like if I give my body sort of like a car, even though my car may be a little antique now, and I feel like if I give it the proper care, then I will be, again, ahead of the game because if my body's getting what it needs, and I know it needs oxygen, then it's going to last a lot longer, and it's going to give me a lot better care than if I didn't use this.
Exactly. We do preventive maintenance for our cars, but why not for ourselves?
That was my theory. That I should just, and I know anyone who ever had a class in biology knows that if you don't have water, you can live for several days. If you don't have food, you can live a little longer than that. But if you don't have oxygen,
it's just a few minutes.
You are gone.
That's right.
And if that is like the prime in our health, then having a pure oxygen for as much of the time as we can just seems to make sense.
Oh, perfect sense. The oxygen levels have been falling because with the industrial age that started several hundred years ago, we have consumed a lot of the oxygen. And, of course, we're cutting down the rainforests and other parts of the planet that breathe for us and make new oxygen. So the levels are going down, especially in the bigger cities.
And we do live in this bigger city, and there are days that no one has to tell me that we have a pollution problem because I just take a deep breath and go, ooh, I don't want to take a deep breath.
Where's my machine?
I still remember when my son was younger, and he ran out the door he loved outdoors, and he ran out the door to play one morning and just immediately came back in and walked in and said, Mother, someone has ruined my world.
Whoa.
And I said, What do you mean? And he had me come outside, and it smelled terrible.
Ooh.
Of course, this was the plants have improved in the last few years since he was really a young child. But I thought, it doesn't take a scientist to tell me that. I've got a little kid that says I can't play outside.
And the truth is really there in their mouths, isn't it?
It is, and that is why I know that a lot of the inhalant, polluted inhalant allergy problems that I've had, I don't even always know when they're out there. Sometimes you do because of the type of thing it is and the chemicals in the air, but
what if it's odorless? That's right.
That's the problem,
That's right.
and that's why I think that you just need to give your body all the help it can get because it's being assaulted and assailed by so many things. And our water and other things are not as pure as they used to be.
Sure.
So if you can at least breathe 8 hours of good oxygen, it certainly can't hurt, and it's just got to put you ahead of everybody else out there who's breathing all this rotten stuff without any help.
The best kind of preventive medicine. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your story with us this morning.
Well, thank you for putting me on to oxygen concentrators.
That's wonderful. God bless you. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
It's now about 40 past the hour here on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. We sometimes forget that spiritual centering is an important part of healing, getting better and staying healthier. Today's verse is from Proverbs, chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. You'll like this one for today's topic. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a bandit, and scarcity like an armed man. And of course, when we're talking about hypoxia or sleep apnea or these low oxygen difficulties, what we're really talking about, what we're really looking at, is the fact that the sleep you're getting isn't restful sleep. It's not the sleep that you're after. It's not restoring and refreshing. And indeed, your health will be stolen from you. Our last guest this morning is a wonderful young lady, Doris Jackson of Beaumont, Texas, who said, have I got a great story for you? And she has been one who's done lots of different things in her life. Welcome to our program this morning, Doris.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your willingness to talk about how you really wanted to stay healthy.
Well, you bet. I'm more than happy to share what I've gained.
That's kind of neat, huh?
It really is, sure. I fully realize, Dr. Trowbridge, that, a good thing is you don't get younger as time passes. You get older, and really good things supposed to happen. Your children are all grown up, and you're supposed to have a new attitude and, indeed, a new life. What you're not supposed to have, however, is perhaps an autoimmune illness to go along with it.
Exactly. Don't need to share that. You don't need to see rusting in your golden years, do you?
No, you don't.
Good grief.
Absolutely not. No.
And you know how funny it is when we look about it, because you can look forward and talk about it, but it's not real till you get it.
Oh, that's right. Oh, absolutely. Well, the secret is let's just not do it. Let's just prevent it, but
exactly.
Try to get a prevention program in place. What happens is they just say, well, wait till you get the illness and we can treat it. There's nothing pharmaceutically to prevent it.
Oh, you mean you don't have a deficiency of a drug you should be taking?
Well, no, I don't believe I ever had.
Okay.
I never was much for taking anything to begin with.
Exactly.
I'm not anti-pharmaceutical. Don't misunderstand
right.
me. But I'm just, I feel like better. I do better if I can, kind of do without some of that.
Sure.
I'd like to do without the illnesses that go along with it, too.
Exactly. And you should take drugs that are required for your better health. But,
absolutely.
But what about options, other ways? And that's what natural healing is all about.
Oh, absolutely. The quest for good health is indeed. It's arduous. For me, it was just not the easiest thing in the world. Now, this may not be true for everyone,
right?
But for me, it took an about turnaround, a total realization that I just needed to turn everything around on my own, and a complete new metamorphosis, as it were.
Exactly. Well, especially important because of your mother and your grandparents having had, high blood pressure and hardening of the arteries and so on.
Oh, I mean.
And, that's kind of a wake-up call when you say, wait a minute, I'm getting to be their age when these things started to show up.
Yeah, another wake-up call comes when your annual checkup, you get little nagging things like elevated this and elevated that wasn't there before.
The Heidi-Hos.
Well, just wait on that. We can't treat it. Just wait till it develops,
Uh-huh.
Well, I can't do that. I just, I couldn't accept that. I just couldn't accept that was going to be a part of my life.
Exactly.
And they just had to be answers. There had to be some answers out there.
Well, especially I'd like to point this out because you came in saying, I've been exposed to toxins for 10 years. This is back from 88 to 98.
True. I realized, and I had already, the more you read and the more you understand and the more you achieve, the more you realize that you don't understand.
Right.
And you don't. Some things are just out of reach for you on your own. And I knew that, listen, I have toxins for someone's been in a chemical plant. I know exactly when those happen. You don't have to be in the shadow of that plant. You don't have to go in and out of that plant every day to get that. All you have to do is be in the right direction of the ill wind for a long period of time.
Well, the ill wind or the water supply,
Yeah,
Doris,
sure.
we're going to talk further on that. Right now, it's about 45 past the hour here on Stars 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. For your better health, I'd like to share with you this special announcement from one of our sponsors, Magnetico. Would you like to sleep soundly and feel better, have extra energy? Dr. Dean Bonley wrestled with these problems and came up with his wonderful invention, the Magnetico Sleep Pad. Scientific blind studies found that the Magnetico Sleep Pad helps people who suffer from pain, fibromyalgia, angina, fatigue, and pain from diabetic neuropathy. Sleep pad owners report relief from arthritis pain, back problems, migraines, high blood pressure, and many other diseases and disorders. Now, you may think the Magnetico Sleep Pad is too good to be true, and Dr. Bonley wants you to be completely satisfied, so Magnetico offers you a 6-month satisfaction guarantee. That's right, a 6-month satisfaction guarantee, so you can start feeling good again. For more information on the Magnetico Sleep Pad, please call this toll-free number now, 1-866-465-8892. That's 1-866-465-8892. Today's celebrity birthdays feature some great entertainers. How about Marlon Brando, Doris Day, George Jessel, and Eddie Murphy? Wonderful folks who've made our lives so much more fun. Now, Doris, we were talking about toxic exposures and your realization. And, the funny thing is a lot of people don't realize it, but it can't be good. It's like when you take your first drag on a cigarette and you cough and spit and turn purple and green. These things are toxic. The air we breathe can be toxic, and the water as well.
Well, I realized the problem with toxins. Sure, I realized that through reading and through my own exposure, and through the feeling that my defenses and my immune system may be about slowly failing.
Right.
And I also realized that I'd done a lot for myself, but I knew that there wasn't much I could do on my own about these toxins, because that was something that had been building up in my system over a period of years.
Exactly.
And that I had gotten a real heavy exposure to them at one time due to the location where I live.
Sure.
And I feel that way. I don't know.
No, well, and that's quite true, because toxins are that way because they go in easily, but they don't come out very readily.
No, and I knew that I couldn't possibly do that on my own. I knew that but I was going to have to somewhere go, down the line get the help of a physician that specialized in nutrition and preventative medicine.
Well, I, if you don't mind, I'm going to share the toxic metals we located, and that's not even counting anything else.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
But,
I don't mind.
You had significant levels of lead and mercury.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And, cadmium, nickel.
Well, that's refinery. Cadmium comes from a refinery, doesn't it?
It can, and it can also come from secondhand smoke and things like this.
Yeah.
So, it's really quite dramatic. When people walk in, they don't think they're, quote, bad off, because they're walking, Mm-hmm. The slogan in medicine, those that walk in, walk out. But when your lifestyle has innocently gotten you exposed to stuff, you're getting sick and don't know it.
You can't escape it.
Right.
You cannot escape it, because it's in the food and it's in the air, and every once in a while it gets worse.
Exactly.
So
we said let's test you for oxygen.
Let's talk about oxygen.
Yeah.
I love talking about oxygen.
Me too.
Well, oxygen begins, of course, with a little test. It's a monitor that's a sleep test, actually.
Right, on your finger, little probe.
Little
right.
monitor that you're kind of tethered to the little fella, little computer thingy, And I brought it. You bring it home with you, and
right.
it's pretty simple, And I went ahead and did the test. Was a real surprise when I woke up the next morning. I thought, I aced that, didn't I?
Yeah, you studied for that test, huh?
I fooled you little machine. So I brought it back into the office, and a couple of days later, I was back in and got my read out. Well, Yeah, I slept all right. I sure did. What I didn't do was breathe.
Yeah, you got kind of low on that.
I don't know if I held my breath or what I did. I was asleep, but
Right.
But
see, that's under automatic control, and we don't realize it because we're not there. We're sleeping.
That kind of explained immediately just a lifetime to me. All my life I would I would wake up, and one thing I love to do is wake up at 3, go back to sleep at 6, and have to get up at 7.
Right.
And just no matter if I slept all night, I would always, ever since I can remember, I would wake up. I didn't feel real good in the morning like other people did.
Right.
And I didn't just wake up. It took me till 10 o'clock. And my mother was concerned about it when I was a youngster. I'd wake up, I'd have headaches. Somebody, when I was about 12 years old, prescribed glasses for me, But then, time passed, and you just kind of forget about it. You just kind of say, well, that's me. And it got to nagging one particular time, and I mentioned it to physician. He said, well, I was probably a candidate for prescribed sleeping medicine. Well, good grief, man, I already had problems. Really, honestly.
Let's see if we can dope you up, too.
Yeah, right. It just wasn't for me, So there again, years passed, and I accepted it. It's just being something in my nature.
Oh, yeah, it's just you.
Help,
Just learn to live with it.
I did. I absolutely learned to live with it, and that was just me, And gosh, that just explained a lifetime to me. Well, I know that a lot of individuals out there have heard these things, and I've heard them, and I had heard negative, very negative media hype, and of course statements and opinions, negative statements and opinions made out of context. Well, I don't even know what they're talking about.
Right.
Really, I didn't pay any attention to that whatsoever, but I know that a lot of people have been exposed to that. I can tell you this isn't that. This is a prescribed, approved, and monitored program of oxygen supplementation. Dr. Trowbridge, the results are immediate and astonishing. Absolutely.
That's really fun. I have to tell you something about immediate. When I saw patients, I started in 93 doing research on this because I was looking at congestive heart failure and how to help people stay alive. So I thought, hey, if they're doing so good, let me check me. And I kind of was lower than I thought I should be. So I started on the oxygen. And for the first 18 days, when I woke up, I felt like I had the flu and was hit by a Mack truck all at the same time. And on day 19, I woke up feeling spectacular.
Well, I'll tell you, it pretty well. I'm going to say about the 4th or 5th day, it was a brand new experience. I'd never woke up that way before my life.
Well, see, what you're doing in that early time is you're turning on your detoxifying mechanisms. And if those methods are working great, then that's fine. If they're kind of slow and sluggish, you feel like I did for almost 3 weeks. You only did it a few days.
Yeah, it was pretty short-lived.
But it's kind of neat when you feel good.
I only had a slight reservation when the actual oxygen supplemental machine was delivered to my door.
What was that?
I looked at that and I thought, my goodness, boy, am I going to have to live with you the rest of my life? And that just immediately changes. I mean, I don't want to go anywhere because I can't. I don't want to go without my oxygen.
That's
you know
funny.
What I mean? I'm very glad, but people say, "Well, golly, isn't that going to bother you?" I hope that I'm bothered for the rest of my life with it.
Yes,
I really do,
because it changes everything.
It's indeed been rewarding. It's been one of the best things that ever happened to me. I never was so surprised in my life. It just solved lifetime problems.
Isn't that something?
It really is.
And no one had ever suggested we look at that, right?
No. No.
But you have to remember, it was less than 40 years ago when we actually began to look at and appreciate that people were having sleeping problems, even though they were sleeping.
That's right.
So
I had no idea.
This is kind of new medicine, but this new frontier is wonderful.
Dr. Trowbridge, let me give the ladies a little bonus.
Okay.
Could I, please?
Sure.
Remember back in the 80s, ladies, when all the stars soaked in milk and all the creams and things had milk and cream in them, a lot of yada that kind of thing. Let me tell you something. When I wake up in the morning, my skin looks like I've been dunked in milk. I can't believe how I look.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it really is.
That is so
I don't
great.
know when that occurred. I just noticed myself one morning. I thought, egad, my cheeks are rosy. And look how clear my eyes are. Amazing.
That's because you're healthier all over from the inside out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was
Isn't that
probably, when I
great?
started on the oxygen therapy, I was probably 6 months into some major programs in your office. Sure, I was.
But when you put it all together,
oh yeah,
funny how all these things work out. You know, a chair.
Well, like I say, you have to experience. I had to experience a metamorphosis. I
Exactly.
had to become a new person. You know.
I love it.
I really did.
If we were going to get from you a 1-minute wrap-up, what's the message that you want people to remember from your experience with oxygen that would help them in their lives? What would you want them to know?
What? It's a cleansing effect. It's a marvelous, good effect. It clears your mind. You feel 100% better. I wish that I could put it into words. I'm just afraid I can't.
No, you're doing a wonderful job.
It's truly amazing, and like I say, I don't want to be without it. I look forward to it, as a matter of fact.
Well,
I look forward to the good rest that it brings.
The good rest and the wonderful day that follows that.
I'm telling you. For sure, yeah.
That's a wonderful way to express the take-home message. You know, because that's what it's all about, is getting out of your pain and going on with your life, even if you've suffered for all of your life.
Well, I had. I didn't know it, though.
Didn't know it.
No, I like to equate my my experience to a child that got a prescription for glasses for the first time in his life. He
can really see.
Yeah, he can see across the street what he's been thinking he saw all those years and talking to the other kids about.
I love it. Doris, thanks so much for sharing with us this morning, and God bless you.
Thank you for allowing me to.
You bet. Take care.
Bye now.
So, what's the take-home message from today's guests? Well, simply this. The breath of life is simply that. Oxygen is the most vital nutrient, and could sleep apnea be affecting your life? Well, call or email or write to us for your easy-to-understand questionnaire, a simple brochure to see whether testing would be appropriate for you. No, it's not in a hospital. There's no needles. It won't cost you or your insurance company thousands of dollars. And it might simply be the answer, as Doris has said, to lifetime problems. You really need to remember that help is really available now. Tell your friends and family how they, too, can be feeling better naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge. In upcoming shows, we'll be sharing ideas about dieting and healthy eating and weight loss, exercising safely and effectively, hormones for better health. Trust me, the answers will surprise you. What about fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and other kind of vague problems? Well, you know, these are related to the many different treatment programs that we do. Sleep apnea and these many other treatment programs will be covered in my upcoming book, Fly Forever, Maintain or Regain Your Medical, so that people who are losing their ability to fly airplanes because their medical condition has worsened have an opportunity to enjoy again the miracle of flight. Today's show is dedicated to our local emergency services. When you need help, your local fire folks, police officers, and emergency medical technicians are just a phone call away. Thanks, 911, for all you do. Our production engineer today is Mark Fisher. Production assistants, Catherine Hill, Kathy Guyan, and Rhonda Bird. Thanks for joining me today. Have you learned practical pointers to help you regain and maintain better health? Maybe to help you guide your family or friends toward new solutions for their problems. Audio tape and CD copies of this show are available for your personal reference and to share with family and friends. Simply call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for details. And what health problems are bringing you down, limiting your comfort, or threatening your future? Share your questions by email. That's info@healthchoicesnow.com. By fax at 281-540-4329, or by mail. Just call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for our address, or to call to talk with one of our treatment assistants and let us know what special information we might send to you. Receive our free e-newsletter simply by sharing your email address with us, and enjoy the free downloads available on our website, www.healthchoicesnow.com, because, you know, if you don't know you have choices now, you don't have any. Feel free to come by to see what's so special and visit with patients who are feeling better right now. They're anxious to share their successes with you in person. We're next to Northeast Medical Center Hospital near Bush Intercontinental Airport. Call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for directions or a map, because we'd love to show you where better health happens. Remember, if your money, your time, your effort, your comfort, or even your life is at stake, get the very best answers and the very best treatment you can find. Rely on experts who can make sense out of your problems, who have the experience to produce results for you. When life is your choice, failure is not an option. Our message is one of hope for a healthier future, and we aim to produce these results for you. Invite your family and friends to join me next week, Saturday morning from 6 to 7 on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever, exclusively on Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge. Have a great day and a wonderful week.